Hi everybody, welcome to Deep Six, the Deep State, my daily video that I do where I really present the news of the day as it really is, and some opinions you won't get on the media, and really you won't get from right-wing organs either, because I'll give it to you in the factual and specific format that perhaps others won't. The guy who ought to be investigated here is James Comey. Who the hell does he think he is? He starts by intervening in the presidential election, not the Russians, Comey, and announces that he's doing a thorough investigation of Hillary's emails. Then he's not only the prosecutor, he's the judge and the jury, and he comes in and he says, oh, we've investigated it. She did a terrible job on these emails. She's sloppy and an administrative nightmare, but we couldn't win a prosecution, so we're not going to prosecute it. Then 4 weeks later, with 2 weeks to go before the election, he says, oh, wait a minute, we just discovered a whole trove of new emails Hillary was hiding. We'll have to go through that and get back to you. Then 5 days before the election, he says, never mind, we looked at it and there's nothing prosecutable there. I mean, the gyrations are enough to make you dizzy. And in each case, he's decided that he's going to name who the next president is, and he's going to give us the returns as he gets them. Then Trump gets elected president, and he comes into possession of a totally fraudulent, nutty, crazy dossier, which we will expose at great length in our forthcoming book, Rogue Spooks, due out in August. By the way, you can go to Amazon or to Barnes & Noble's and pre-order your copy, and that'd be great. And if you do, I'll send you an autographed copy. With Barnes & Noble, with Amazon, wait a day or two because I have to put up the link, but with Barnes & Noble's, you could do it now. So you won't get it until August, but it'll be signed then. So then a month after, 2 months after Trump's election, he gets this memo, dossier, that has ridiculous lies. It says that the guy who negotiated on behalf of Trump to set up the deal with Putin was a guy named Michael Cohen, and the meetings were in Prague. Cohen has never been to Prague and had nothing to do with any of this stuff. It's just a name they picked out of a hat. They may have had another Michael Cohen in mind when they went through passports and said, hey, that's the name of Trump's lawyer. Maybe it was the same guy. And there's a story that Russian prostitutes performed in front of him, which is ludicrous. The guy who they cite as a source denies it. They identified the two people who hacked Hillary's DNC account and John Podesta's, and one of them is in jail, a child molester, a pedophile, 600 miles away from Moscow, with no access to a telephone or the internet. And the other one is a quadrillionaire based in Cyprus who had nothing to do with it and is suing BuzzFeed that published this and the spook who wrote it, Christopher Steele, for defamation. But Comey takes this document, gives it to Trump, gives it to Obama, gives it to Congress, and knows that it's going to leak from there, wants it to leak. And it goes out there and it fuels 4 months of rumors and innuendo and garbage and nonsense, none of which is true. Then he goes to his first meeting with Trump, and he writes a memo about it. He copies it in a memo. Who does he think he is to do that? And the meeting concerns Flynn. And Trump says, go easy on him. He's a good guy. And Comey says, oh, I'm being told to obstruct justice. I'm being told to suborn an investigation. And he just completely flips out. Then he has a variety of meetings with Trump, and he writes memos about all of them and leaks the memos himself. We've been asking the FBI to investigate to find out who the leaker was. Well, who it was the director of their own damn agency, James Comey. Then he gets fired, which he certainly needed to be, and he writes another memo about his firing and admits that he gives it to a law professor who gives it to the newspapers. And he admits that his goal there is to force the appointment of a special prosecutor. Who the hell is he? Who died and left him in charge, as my wife would say, to make these kinds of decisions. It is just outrageous. It is ridiculous. And this guy has just gotten too big for his britches, and somebody needs to cut him down to size. And He has admitted to leaking documents. He's admitted to leaking confidential information, which is illegal. And if we probe a little further, I'll bet we'll find some classified information that he leaked. And I think that he's the guy that ought to be investigated. Comey said in his testimony, I thought leaking the memo about why he was fired, might prompt the appointment of special prosecutor. I said to him, the guy he gave the memo to, make sure this gets out. Boy, absolutely confuses himself with God. Now, it's in his testimony, Comey went on at great length about the integrity of the FBI, the independence of the Bureau, its heritage of accuracy and impartiality. Absolute BS. The FBI has a reputation, if you look at its history, of being the most self-interested, political, opportunistic, dishonest agency you can possibly imagine. I mean, not all of it. A lot of the G-men are really good. But the leadership of the FBI under J. Edgar Hoover and now and recently under Eric Holder and James Comey is absolutely terrible. The FBI was founded around 1908 kind of as a secret service to protect the president. McKinley had been assassinated. And by 1924, Hoover took it over and initially did a pretty good job of investigating some very high-profile cases. He's the one that killed John Dillinger and cornered Al Capone and so on. In the 1930s, he was appointed director in 1924. In the 1930s, FDR became president. And when he began to push America toward intervening in World War II, the isolationists went crazy and opposed him like everything, led by Charles Lindbergh, the guy who flew solo across the Atlantic Ocean, national hero. So Hoover wiretapped them, and he turned up evidence that Lindbergh had been in touch with Hermann Göring, the head of the Luftwaffe. He turned up evidence that he was having an affair with a likely German spy, and all kinds of stuff like that, and dug up a lot of dirt on Roosevelt's political opponents. And Roosevelt was very grateful for that, and in return gave Hoover more and more power and more budget. And when World War II came, and coincidentally that year the Supreme Court ruled against wiretapping, Roosevelt said, oh, in national security cases, you go ahead and wiretap. And Hoover had a field day. In 1948, he hated Harry Truman because Truman didn't want to let him go as far as Roosevelt had. So he's running against Dewey, Truman is, in 1948, and Hoover puts the FBI into the race on Dewey's side. He does negative research on Trump, using wiretaps, using the FBI, and he digs up a scandal. A guy, general named Harry Vaughn, who worked for Truman, and that dogged Truman's whole administration because Hoover did that. Then we go into the 60s and the 70s, where Johnson and Hoover used the FBI aggressively to keep tabs on fellow Americans, to have files on everybody. He had over 300,000 files on American citizens, 6,700 of whom he marked special priority. It was a secret police. It was a Gestapo. And the way Hoover kept the FBI in business and himself in power was he got blackmail material on presidents and on senators and on reporters. In fact, when Hoover was serving under Roosevelt, Roosevelt put in a guy as Attorney General who Hoover didn't like, who was his boss. And Hoover sent out and found the guy was having an affair, gave the guy the info. The guy who was Murphy, who became a Supreme Court judge, said, oh, no, we're going to hands off the agency. You're doing a fine job there, J. Edgar. And that was routine in the Bureau. So this Bureau has no history of independence and any of that. And in the 1980s, it was fraught with scandal as spy after spy stole America's secrets and gave them to the Russians. And to say that he's acting to uphold the historic integrity of the FBI, you're not going to sell that one to me. I wasn't born completely yesterday. Now, in the course of this explanation of Comey, we have an interesting fact that emerged. You remember the mystery meeting on the tarmac in the Phoenix airport between former President Clinton and the Obama Attorney General Loretta Lynch that came 4 or 5 days before Hillary had to testify under oath and in public in connection with the email scandal? Well, it turns out that Loretta Lynch offended Comey, and that's why Comey decided to go public with the results of the investigation, because he was offended. What Loretta did was, when Comey said, I think I should comment on the investigation of Hillary, she said, oh, don't use the word investigation, use the word matter. Comment on the Hillary Clinton email matter. And Comey said, I've got to say investigation, that's what it is. And she said, no, I want you to use the phrase matter. And he was so upset by that. This egomaniac was so personally offended by it that he decided he had to go public with the first of his 3 announcements about Hillary Clinton's email, intervening an election right in the middle of it in a way that Putin could only have dreamed about if he'd done it. Let's understand throughout this whole scandal that it is very probable that Russia did indeed hack the DNC and hacked Podesta and hacked hundreds of other organizations. It is also possible that it spread disinformation, but it is not possible that it in any way interfered with the counting or the results. And the disinformation wasn't that important. What's the disinformation that turned this whole election? Did they invent that Hillary had 30,000 undisclosed deleted emails, many of which were related to classified information? Did it make up that Bill Clinton got all these bribes in return for access to Hillary, thinly disguised as speaking fees? Did they make up that Benghazi happened? I mean, come on. There was no big piece of disinformation that clouded the whole campaign. And the release of the emails did very little damage to Hillary. They mainly concerned the Democratic Party screwing Bernie Sanders, and that caused a bigger rift in the Democratic Party. But it healed. The Sanders people got in line, towed the line, and backed Hillary loyally. There were a lot of scars, but that wasn't a reason why Hillary lost the election. And the emails from Podesta had really no impact. They were a little embarrassing to Podesta. In one email, he called Chelsea a spoiled brat, which is not a bad characterization, but the point is that it was scarcely earth-shaking. And then the second point to realize is not only did the Russian intervention, if it was, have nothing to do with the outcome of the election, Trump had nothing to do with it. The contact so far between Trump's people and Putin's people, one was Jared Kushner probably trying to get a loan, which he probably shouldn't have tried for while Trump was going to be president, and just the normal diplomatic contacts that go on, and his national security advisor trying to stop a war by saying that not to overreact to the sanctions Obama imposed on Russia for compromising and attacking the Democratic Party. So these are not major things. And to say that Trump was involved in this in any way is absurd. In fact, the very fact that this matter is not a new matter that just came up with 2 weeks ago they named the prosecutor. It's been under heavy investigation for a year by the FBI. And if they haven't come up with anything, and they really haven't, you can be pretty sure that there's nothing there. I'll be back in a moment or two with a very interesting story about Qatar being declared by the fellow Arab nations the center of terrorist financing in the world, and its payment of $1 million to Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton during her tenure as Secretary of State. Stick around, I'll talk about that. Now, this Lunch Alert is sponsored, as the others are, not Lunch Alert, Deep Six broadcast, Deep Six, the Deep State, is funded and supported by the Patriot Gold Group. And this is an interesting thing, and pardon me if I read some of it because I have to get it accurate. Many of you may have bought Proof Gold and Silver American Eagles, which is a piece of gold or silver, very attractively mounted as a coin or a medal or a medallion. And people buy it not just because the gold and the silver will appreciate, but because the coin itself is a collectible and has great value itself. And they pay a premium for this of usually about 50% over the actual price of the metal. But the Patriot Gold Group is willing to give you, or sell you, I guess, a RCM Royal Canadian Mint silver polar bear and cub and GYR Falcon, Gear Falcon. I don't know what that means. But that's a medallion that's just as pretty as our eagle, and just as made of gold or out of silver, but it costs 50% less. So that if you take your existing amount that you paid for your silver or proof gold American Eagle, and let's say you paid $10,000 for it, they may be able to save you $3,000 and permit you to spend $3,000 on additional gold and silver. They estimate that they could save as much as 50% of the amount you spent on the collectible coins. And if you call them and you discuss your portfolio, just for the act of doing that, they will send you a silver medallion for free and give you advice over the phone for free. So their phone number is 800-476-5675. 800-476-5675. Or go to patriotgoldgroup.com. patriotgoldgroup.com, or 800-476-5675. 476-5675. I'm repeating it that much so I learn it, as well as you. Now, Qatar. Fascinating thing happened 2 days ago. All of the other Emirate states in the Persian Gulf ganged up and broke their diplomatic relationships with Qatar. Really the step before war. And that was Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Oman, Bahrain, Kuwait. I think that's it, the 5 of them. And Qatar is the 6th. And this was really saying that we have largely cut our links to financing terrorism, partially because it's terrorism, but also partially because the terrorists happen to be in league with Iran, and Iran is a mortal threat to us, far worse than Israel ever was. And they've really come down hard on Qatar. And that casts into sharp perspective Hillary and Bill's relationship with Qatar. Hillary and Bill had their foundation game going on, where Amitabh Desai, D-S-A-I, the Clinton Foundation's foreign policy director, emailed 3 Clinton Foundation employees. Doug Band, Bill's chief of staff, was one of them, on April 16, 2012, about his meetings with the ambassadors from Qatar. While Hillary was Secretary of State. And he wrote Hillary an email. Qatar would like to see Bill Clinton for 5 minutes in New York to present $1 million check that Qatar promises for Bill's birthday. 65th birthday, that was a little nothing they were going to give him for his birthday, and they did give it to him. And they wanted the 5 minutes with him. Now, in terms of the gift and the money that she got, Hillary was responsible for disclosing that. If a foreign government wished to donate, or if an existing government donor such as Qatar wanted to increase materially its support of ongoing programs, Hillary promised that the State Department would be notified and given a chance to raise any concerns. It was not. And then the United States concluded arms deals with Qatar that increased arms shipments to that country by 14-fold, 1,400%. And emails from 2009 published by the State Department show the Qatari royal family lobbied for friendly ties with Mrs. Clinton, going through Sherry Blair, Prime Minister Blair's wife. Very interesting, and really, of the various smoking guns in the Clinton Foundation scandal, that's a pretty big one. So where's Jeff Sessions on this? Where are the grand juries on this? Where's the investigation? I urge you, I'm keeping you busy now, to write a letter to the Attorney General, Department of Justice, Washington, D.C. That's all you have to put. Forget the street address, they'll do it. And demand an investigation of Hillary Clinton's relationships to Qatar. That's Qatar. no U in that, Qatar, T-A-R, Qatar. This deserves an investigation. This smacks to me of an outright bribe of $1 million in return for arms shipments, and really worth looking at. And let's get some scrutiny on the real criminals here, not on the phony nonsense that they're trying to frame Donald Trump with. There's a tragic story about a man from Pakistan, and it gives you a sense of what this country is all about. On Ramadan, an unconscious man was rushed to a Pakistani hospital. He was a sewer cleaner, and he was stricken by poisonous gases stuck inside of a sewer hole. Time was of the essence, but the emergency staff at the hospital in Pakistan refused to treat him, a 30-year-old Christian, until he was ceremonially washed and cleansed because it was Ramadan, and the doctors were fasting, and they couldn't get anybody to take care of him. After they cleaned him up and pumped oxygen to him, the pump was empty. It was just lying around, and they picked it up, and it was empty, and nobody did anything about it, and the guy died of asphyxiation, gasping for air. The Christian community in Pakistan has protested that, and it's just evidence of what happens when you go so far down that line toward a theocratically based government. You run into problems like this. Now, good news. I spoke to you about it, I think, first fun news. Nancy Pelosi. There is increasing evidence that she's gone gaga. One was sanity didn't look too good on her, but dementia looks worse. She did an interview yesterday, and she kept referring to President Bush, and her people had to prompt her, Trump, Trump. Then she lost track of the day of the week. She said, I spoke to the speaker a couple of days ago about, just last Friday. What is today? Is it Friday again? It was Thursday. And then she said that she was attacking Trump's fitness for office. And she said, the fact is that it is hopefully not reparable. He's president of the United States. And Scarborough said, you mean you hope it is reparable? And she said, yeah. So those are mistakes that an amateur might make if they're nervous on TV. But there's a great quote from Hamlet. Madness and great ones must not unwatched go. Now, on the good news front, I reported to you a couple of days ago that the United States had successfully intercepted an ICBM simulating what would happen if North Korea launched a missile trying to hit the United States. And the details of that test have now come out, and they're very heartening. It's a $36 billion system of radar, command links, and ground-based interceptors that they say can defeat any long-range threat that North Korea or Iran can develop through 2020. What that means really is that as long as their capacity is limited to several missiles, not 12,000, a system like this can be 100% effective. And this demonstration really showed it. And it was not a proximity fuse. It was not a question of get in the general neighborhood of the missile and then detonate an explosive and hope you kill it. This literally kissed the missile. That's what they say. Kissed it, touched it, and destroyed it. And that is very, very good. The interceptor was launched from the Vandenberg Air Force Base in California and crashed into the mock ICBM fired from something atoll in the Marshall Islands. The test employed precision tracking in an operationally realistic way to guide the interceptor to its targets. That's pretty good. It really offers us some hope. And if you remember my story from yesterday, those idiots, those buttheads in South Korea, President Moon, the newly elected peace candidate, has announced that he is no longer going to have 6 ground missile interceptors supplied by the U.S. For the moment, he'll keep the 2 that are there, but he's not going to add 4 more, and he may decommission those 2, allegedly for an environmental review. In fact, because he wants to appease North Korea, and he thinks if he's nice to them, they'll be nice to him. A lot of people have tried that. Well, thanks very much. Deep Six, the Deep State. Every day from 6 to 6:30, I do this. Yesterday's we got 75,000 views, which was just terrific. I was thinking when I used to do daytime TV on Fox, I'd get about 180, 200. So I'm getting up there. It's pretty good. Thanks very much for watching. I appreciate it.